Welcome friends to this episode of Through Literary Lanes. Vinod ji, namaskar.
Namaskar, how are you, Rajesh ji?
Yeah, fine Vinod ji, and we are continuing our series on your book Beyond Fragmentation.
Yeah, definitely. Our viewers must be remembering that in our last episode we had discussed the first theory out of 3 theories which are included in this book. You can look at this book, Beyond Fragmentation. This book is published by Rudra Publication, and friends, this is available on Kindle, Amazon.
And all the triad of theories, all the 3 theories, Vinod ji, we have named the book Beyond Fragmentation because all the 3 theories have the theme of unification.
Yes.
And first theory, as we discussed, is a TCP model of truth. What we know as truth, what we regard as truth, really comprises of text, context, and perception.
Yes, today we will proceed to look at the second theory of this book, that is 10 Commandments of Enlightenment.
And by enlightenment and by 10 commands, Vinod ji, many of us are reminded of religious scriptures, religious prescriptions, and the final goal of almost all the religions, which is enlightenment.
Yes, because enlightenment is perhaps the most talked about,
It's the most sought after thing
in all the religions.
And every religious preacher claims to be enlightened.
And enlightenment in the religious sense, basically it is the freedom or the liberation from this life and from this world. It is the attainment of so-called supreme wisdom, supreme knowledge that different seekers try to express this experience under the label of enlightenment.
But here, Vinod ji, you have used the same terminology, but you have given us very different insights from the typical religious ones.
At the outset, let me share with you that this theory has nothing to do either with religion or with the spirituality. This is the theory that can be clubbed with other motivational theories, basically. This theory tells you how you can achieve any task in life with full results, with full intensity, and with full fulfillment.
Definitely. And this 10-step process, the 10 commandments of enlightenment, which you call them, really they are the different stages or the different steps which lead us to doing anything in life with full commitment, full involvement, and they enable us to give our best.
Yes, they lead us to finally have the fulfillment and happiness out of the any act that we want to undertake. It can be as simple as eating meals, or it can be the act of love.
No, it can be literally anything which one wants to do. And even the traditional enlightenment also is supposed to make us calm, quiet, and efficient, but unfortunately it is involved in so much mystification that it ends up yielding almost nothing, I should call it.
The simple litmus test of any action is that once you do that action, if it gives you happiness and contentment, that is, it is worth doing. If it results in tiredness, fatigueness, discontentment, unhappiness, that means either it is not worth doing or the process that you adopted to do it is wrong.
Not. And the second litmus test is whatever you do, it should not be harmful at the collective level.
Exactly. And before we proceed to look at these 10 steps basically,
10 steps.
I would like to give one clarification. Instead of enlightenment, why I have not used the word epiphany, which is a secular word. Now, my justification to this statement is, epiphany is a sudden occurrence, as the students of literature and culture will know, right? It's a sudden occurrence. There is no serious effort on the part of an individual to have epiphany, and this is precisely the reason I have avoided the use of the word epiphany.
Epiphany is abrupt,
sudden. Without even, you may not wish to have epiphany, but still the epiphany comes about. For example, when Rishi Aurobindo, before becoming a Rishi, he was a revolutionary, and he was jailed, right? Because of the participation in some violent revolutionary activity. And one fine morning, he looked at the barred window
in the Alipur jail.
and says there is a Vasudeva.
Vasudeva in everything, in the jail bars and even
He
everything.
left everything. He left the freedom movement and went to Pondicherry and became a great saint.
Whereas if you contrast it with Buddha,
Yes.
Buddha worked. He left his palace, he left his family, and he roamed around for 12 years and he worked for his enlightenment.
So when I use the word enlightenment, I ask the person, I ask the reader to undertake a serious journey, to make best efforts to reach that state of enlightenment. Enlightenment that arises out of action that requires the full involvement of head and heart and hand of the doer.
Yes, definitely. And in your 10 steps, Vinodji, action is at the ladder level 7.
Yes.
Before action, there are 6 things which a person requires to undertake.
And this is very important.
Yeah.
Many of the people, especially the Western motivators, right? They always ask the person, undertake the action.
Yeah.
Simply do it. Nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
So this is really not a right advice. Before we can come to action, which comes at the 7th level, as you said, we have to undergo the 6 stages. And one more thing, all these steps of the enlightenment, all these 10 commandments must be followed by the practitioner sequentially. Otherwise, they will not give the desired results.
Correct. And they should be understood in the proper perspective. The name itself will not tell you what it is. Like first step is the reading. Now, reading is, of course, literal reading, material available in that context, but it is much more than that.
It is simply getting the information, getting the data about the act that you are likely to perform.
You should survey the entire field. You should not jump into action without knowing about the field, anything like that.
So it is simply knowing, awareness of something, some action that you want to take.
Yeah.
And then second step is understanding. Once you have got the data, once you have got the information, you need to understand it. Without understanding, if you perform the action, you would not get desired results.
And what is this understanding, Vinodji? I understand the understanding to mean that one should be able to contextualize it.
Yes.
Reading is the text. Like
text is same.
If we take the analogy of a book, reading is just the words and paragraphs in this. But if you want to really understand the contents, you have to really contextualize it, and you can apply this analogy to anything.
Yeah, and if you go back to our earlier theory, so reading is equivalent to text and understanding is equivalent to context, roughly, of course.
Yeah.
The third step of this theory is interpretation.
And that is essentially a subjective action. Of course, we intersubjectively agree upon various interpretations, but interpreter is the person himself or herself.
So it is precisely the third stage where you shift from one generalized understanding to personalized interpretation. Reading is same for all. Even understanding can be same, universal. But the moment you shift from understanding to interpretation, that is from second to third stage, here you begin to personalize that particular concept, that particular act, that particular thought, whatever it may be.
And before proceeding further, Vinodji, let us parallelly take some other example also, which may clarify the thing. For example, 2 people are into a relationship. First of all, they meet each other. They know something about each other. Of course, nobody can know everything about one another. That's given. But reading part will involve that
exploring the possibilities to take the relationship further.
It's not that you simply see on the neighbor's terrace a girl is standing and you eye to eye contact and you fall in love. That is a myth. That's a myth. So reading is knowing one another and then understanding. Of course, whatever you do, whatever each of you is acting, going to school, college, or whatever, you should try to understand the context of the life of one another.
Yes, that is understanding. Then comes interpretation. Although both the people who are involved in the relationship, they understand it, but each one's interpretation is different.
It's different. Like simple phrase, Vinodji, I will tell you. Suppose a boy says to a girl, I love you.
Yes.
What he means by this phrase may not be the same what a girl perceives.
Perhaps the boy may wish physical intimacy by this sentence.
So be in bed with her, that's it?
Yeah. On the other hand, the girl may wish emotional security.
And when she says I love you, she may mean something different.
Exactly.
Which a boy may not.
So that is interpretation. Now, interpretation takes us to the 4th level, that is thinking. Now you begin to think
cognitively,
rationally.
about the subject matter, about the person, about the situation, about your own interpretation,
Yes.
and about the understanding of the things. And what you really want out of that rationality always projects in future as well. So what you want out of that situation, that person, that very thing.
One more thing, Rajesh, where in modern rationalists, they give precedence to thought over feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas in my theory,
Ji.
I have given more importance to feeling, and that is why it comes at the fifth stage.
Yeah, even fourth stage is thinking. I
Yes.
was precisely going to ask you this question, whether the emotion comes first or the thought comes first.
I believe that the thought comes first, and thought would lead you to the higher level, that is emotional level. Very often people believe that rationality or the logic or reason is more important in life, and therefore they give the advice that one should not be sentimental, one should not be emotional. But I tell you, any decision can be taken rationally, but when it comes to implement that decision, it has to be emotional. Only then you will reap the real fruit of your decision.
So while deciding, you say that one should be rational enough, one should weigh all the considerations,
Yes.
but implementing it should be personal, compassionate,
Yes.
emotional, like a person, not like a robot. Isn't it?
Exactly. So that is why emotion is placed at the next level, at the fifth level in my theory.
Even I would argue that it's a circle, Vinodji. Both are interlinked. First you think about something, or first you even feel about something, then you think over it. Again, your feelings will be much more refined when you give it a thought.
Yeah, that is of course. All everything is so interconnected, because we should not lose the sight of the core element of the book. Everything is interconnected. So after that, when you proceed to the sixth level, that is assimilation. Until unless we are not assimilated everything, we will not be in a position to perform any act with the final sense of enlightenment.
Now, what is this assimilation? Many people may be confused. It's a very vague phrase. When we assimilate something, it becomes a part of our life. It becomes a part of our emotional makeup, part of our cognitive makeup, and it becomes integral to our life. It's not an external thing which 1 hour we will go do this and then forget about it totally.
In other words, I would like to tell you,
Yeah.
Assimilation stands exactly midway.
Yeah.
Five steps are before it,
Yeah.
and 4 steps are after it. Now, up to this point, up to assimilation, it was a learning process.
Yes.
Everything was taking within the person, right? He has acquired the information, understood it, interpreted, thought about it, felt about it. Now he is ready to plunge himself into actual action. If I am permitted to give some crude example, suppose somebody starts driving the car. Before actually he goes on the first drive, he learns about the car, he learns about the engine, he learns about the brake and accelerator and everything. He learns about the road on which he wants to go for the first drive. Now he is ready. He has assimilated every piece of information about that vehicle, about the techniques of driving, everything. Now he has assimilated. So now he is ready to plunge into action. The moment he starts the vehicle, it will go to the 7th level of action.
And assimilation also means, I think, that if something is not affecting you in your own, activities, like a medical student.
Yes.
When he or she passes out and becomes a doctor and starts to practice but when they meet a person and they forget to wear the mask, suppose, for example, in today's context,
yes.
Would you say that medical knowledge is assimilated?
No, it is not assimilated. If the action, if the action is not appropriate, it is sufficient to believe that the proper assimilation has not
happened.
Taken place. Now, I'm sure that the listeners or the viewers may find it difficult to have the appropriate examples. So I would like to give them an advice that they should read the book. In the book, at every stage, I have made it clear with some example which is quite understandable. Because of the time constraint of this show, we cannot go on describing every point with the help of example. So action,
And then we take action, you are essentially transformed.
yes, action should lead to
Transformation. It is not as if like a machine, like a robot, you are acting and then leaving it aside and continuing with the other things. No. Any action, if it is sufficiently grave enough for you, it is going to lead to certain transformation within yourself.
Exactly. And if action does not lead to transformation, that means something has gone wrong at any of the previous stages, right? Now, transformation is 8th stage, and the 9th is transcendence. It's very difficult to
really put it into words.
But I will give you an example, Rajesh. Imagine that there is a female counselor, and she has been counseling a lot of clients for the last 25 years. And one female client comes to her, and she is in abusive relationship with her husband. She is very easily tells her that, okay, if the relationship has gone to that extent where you are not able to put up with, it's better to get out of the relationship. So this is the transformation. So she understands where the relationship should end and where it should not. But surprisingly, when you look at the personal life of this female counselor, she herself has been living in an abusive relationship. So she is able to bring about the transformation in the life of others, but she is not able to transcend her own personal situation.
Like this reminds me of an anecdote where a mother brings her child to a saint and says that you please advise him to give up sweetmeats. He says come after 1 week, and she goes after 1 week and says why? Because I was also eating sweetmeats myself and I tried to give it up myself, then only I can advise the boy. Isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So until unless you do not practice yourself, you will not reach to that stage of transcendence. And final is the liberation. Liberation is the ultimate final joy. It is the final bliss that should be the result of any action if it is performed with all the necessary steps, so that you will liberation. Now you are liberated. Liberated of what? Liberated of worry, liberated of tension, liberated of stress, even liberated of the effort that you have put into it. Now it is the time of the spontaneous joy. It is a time of fulfillment. So,
do you want to say, Vinodji, that liberation results when you enjoy the action in and of itself?
Yes.
Without any means to certain anything else.
Here,
but the action itself gives you the joy.
If I'm permitted to give the analogy of need hierarchy theory of Maslow. So self-actualization, where the person performs something not because he is likely to have some benefit out of it, but it does it for the sake of doing it, because he gets joy out of it, bliss out of it. Bliss is the ultimate reward. So the liberation, you are perfectly liberated, because you do something and if still you are entangled in that, then that is not a liberation. So liberation is the 10th step in this process, and once you achieve liberation, only then it can be said that the person has attained enlightenment. Now it is to be cautioned here, enlightenment cannot be attained for the entire life.
Actually,
enlightenment has to be attained from task to task,
day-to-day basis,
from situation to situation, from relation to relationship. So that is a challenging task. In everything that you do, you must undertake with the clearest objective that you have to go through all the 10 steps, so that ultimately you should have enlightenment after performing that particular act. As I said, it can be as simple as having a cup of tea, or it can be as complex as falling in love with someone.
Definitely.
So this book will tell you more about this theory, and definitely this is not a simple theoretical theory, but it can very well be practiced in day-to-day life, in your personal life, in your social life, even in your professional life. This theory has a practical value, and it has the potential to qualitatively transform your life. You test by yourself, and I'm sure Rajeshji, after listening to your wonderful elucidation on this theory, readers or listeners are motivated enough to go through this theory by reading this book and apply it in their life.
And I hope it will also be an enlightening experience for them.
Yeah, thank you very much for shedding light on this theory, and I look forward to have your special comments on the third theory as well very soon. Till that time, take care. We'll be back again. Thank you very much.